Smoke billowed into the night sky, and a desperate scream tore through the silence, yet no one else heard it. No one except a war veteran haunted by his past and the loyal dog who never left his side. What they found inside that burning house would change 3 lives forever and reveal a twist that none of them could have imagined. Before we begin, if you believe in courage, kindness, and real-life miracles, please like this video and subscribe to Hopeful Stories for more inspiring tales. The night was unusually quiet in the small town of Ridgefall. The kind of quiet that made every sound feel heavier, sharper, more meaningful. James Rourke, a veteran of 2 tours overseas, walked his usual evening route with his dog. Ranger Ann, aging German Shepherd, with silver beginning to lace his muzzle, but with the same sharp, brave eyes he'd had since deployment. To most people in town, James was just the quiet guy who lived at the edge of the woods. They didn't know the nightmares he still fought, the memories that kept him awake, or the guilt that had followed him home. James relied on Ranger more than anyone knew. The dog wasn't just his companion, he was the only link between James and the world he struggled to rejoin. As they turned onto Maple Ridge Road, Ranger suddenly froze, ears pricked, muscles stiffening. James knew that stance he'd trusted it with his life before. "What is it, boy?" he whispered. Ranger took off without waiting, sprinting toward a small house tucked behind a row of oak trees. That's when James heard it, the faint, barely there crackle of fire, followed by a scream so small it could have been the wind. Except he'd heard a sound like that too many times to mistake it. He ran, adrenaline surging, heart hammering like it hadn't in years. Flames licked the windows of the little home, and smoke curled beneath the eaves. James didn't stop to think. He crashed through the front door, shielding his face with his jacket. Ranger bounded ahead, barking as if calling him deeper inside. The house was already filling with smoke. The kind that smothered your lungs in seconds. The kind James remembered from the desert. He pushed on, crawling low, searching for the source of that tiny, terrified scream. Then he heard it again, a child's sob. "Ranger, find her," he shouted. The dog darted into a back room where the flames burned hottest. For a terrifying moment, James thought the collapsing debris might trap them all. But then Ranger emerged, tugging at the sleeve of a little girl no older than 6. Her face covered in soot, her eyes wide with fear. She clung to Ranger's fur, while James lifted her into his arms and shielded her from falling embers. The heat pressed against his back as he ran for the exit. Each second waited with the feeling that they might not make it. They burst out onto the lawn, just as part of the roof caved in behind them. James collapsed to his knees, coughing, holding the girl close. She cried into his shoulder, clinging to him as though he were the only safe thing left in her world. Ranger circled them protectively, barking at the flames like he could scare them away. Within minutes, neighbors rushed over, sirens howled in the distance, and the little girl was bundled into an ambulance. She kept asking for James. She wouldn't let go of his hand until a paramedic finally coaxed her gently. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice weak but sincere. James only nodded, unable to form words. As the ambulance drove away, James sat on the curb beside Ranger, exhausted, shaking, wondering why fate had chosen him to be there at that exact moment. He didn't know that his night was far from over. Someone very important was coming in. She was bringing something that would change his life. James didn't sleep that night. Even after the firefighters extinguished the flames and the last fire truck rolled away, he sat outside his small cabin with Ranger curled at his feet, replaying the rescue in his mind. He kept seeing the little girl's soot-streaked face and hearing her fragile voice. Saving her had brought something back in him, something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose, maybe even healing. But he pushed the thought aside. Heroes were men who didn't flinch, men who didn't have nightmares. James didn't feel like one. Just after sunrise, as a pale gold glow crept across the trees, a black SUV rolled quietly up his gravel driveway. James stood slowly, unsure if he was in trouble or about to get thanked. Ranger stayed at his side, alert but calm. The car door opened, and a woman stepped out, all elegant, dressed in a perfectly pressed suit that looked too expensive for Ridgefall. Her eyes were red as though she had cried for hours. "Are you James Rourke?" she asked, her voice shaking. "Yes," he replied cautiously. "I'm Alina Hartwell," she said. The name meant nothing to him, but in the business world. She was known as the CEO of Hartwell Innovations, one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the country. "You saved my daughter last night." James blinked. She's your daughter?" Alina nodded, and the tears she'd been holding back finally spilled over. She ran a trembling hand through her hair, struggling to steady her breath. "Doctors said if you hadn't been there at that exact moment, she wouldn't have survived. I can never repay that, but I want to try." She reached into her car and pulled out an envelope, not some flimsy one, but the heavy, embossed kind used for decisions that mattered. She handed it to him with both hands, as if it deserved reverence. James hesitated before opening it, and when he finally did, his breath caught. Inside was a check, with more zeros than he had ever seen attached to his name. Enough to rebuild his life. Enough to erase the debts he hid from everyone. Enough to give Ranger the medical care he'd been putting off because he couldn't afford the treatments. "This is too much," James said immediately, shaking his head. "Ma'am, I can't." "You can," Alina cut in gently. "And you will. Because my daughter is alive today, and that's worth more than any amount of money I could ever give. You didn't run away. You didn't hesitate. You saved her when no one else did." Her voice cracked, and James saw not the powerful CEO the world knew, but a mother whose universe had nearly been destroyed. He looked down at Ranger, who nudged his hand as if telling him to accept it for once, to let life give instead of taking away. Alina knelt and scratched Ranger's ears. "And you, brave boy, you saved her too." She reached into the SUV and pulled out a second envelope filled with vouchers and prepaid appointments for the best veterinary clinic in the region. He deserves the best. James felt something swell in his chest. Gratitude, disbelief, warmth he hadn't felt in years. For once, the weight on his shoulders felt lighter. Alina stood, wiping her eyes. "If you ever need anything at all, you'll call me. You're family now." As she drove away, James looked at the check again, then at the woods glowing in the early sun. For the first time in a long while, he felt hope, real hope. The kind that whispers maybe the world hasn't forgotten you. Maybe it's just been waiting for the right moment to remind you that you still matter. He knelt beside Ranger, pulled him close, and whispered, "We did good, buddy." And for the first time in years, James didn't feel alone. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that heroes still walk among us often with four paws, please like this video and subscribe to Hopeful Stories for more powerful, life-changing moments. Your support helps us keep sharing hope with the world.